name is Lynn Kota. I am the National Project Director for the Smallholder Market-led project. It's also inside it, it's also the Climate Smart Agriculture for Resilient Livelihoods project. The project is sponsored by IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and also by the Global Environment Facility, that is GEF. It is also co-financed by the government of Eswatini. The main objectives or the main goal of the project is to contribute to the national goal of a reduction of poverty, particularly in rural communities. So the project has basically three components that all are providing support to the communities to be able to meet the goal of poverty reduction, in the rural areas. So the first component really deals with community development, that it lays the ground, for communities to prepare themselves for the development. In other words, it sort of enables them to be able to grasp new ideas that might be coming and be able to work together as a community in order to reach the goal of poverty reduction, in community. The project works in 37 communities. In the Lubombo region, we have 10 communities. In the Shisebele region, there is 22 communities. And then in the Manzini region, there's 5 communities. And now there's also the second component deals with infrastructure for soil and water conservation. Now, this is the component that actually looks at the construction of small earth dams for the community to be able to produce for the market. Because now we're saying that, over and above subsistence farming, the communities must now produce for the market. So we have that component which really looks at livestock and crops, for supplying the market. And again, in that component, we're not leaving behind the community members that are still not ready to produce for the market. So in this project, we're trying to ensure, that communities supply the market consistently with what is in demand in the market.
Cattle resemble wealth to the Eswatini communities. When rain clouds gather, there's an element of hope to the communities. This all means that the Swade will have a plentiful harvest. But does it really? Cattle as well as the rains are responsible for degrading the very soil that is to be used for farming and grazing. The impact of soil erosion has left many of our communities worried in terms of cashing in on a plentiful harvest and a productive living. So large is the impact that the communities of Ncega and Slangweni have taken up to do something to curb these effects. Through Swade, under the LUCIP GEF Sustainable Land Management Project, the communities are engaged in a skills capacity building exercise to equip them on how to handle this environmental challenge.
What is happening right now, or what the project is assisting the community to do right now, is to fence off some of the lands that are degraded and actually work in rehabilitating those lands. And then inside the fenced areas, they then are encouraged to form user associations where they're going to maybe plant fruit trees or hay, for their cattle, so that they realize it's not only for benefits not only for the environment per se, but also for their own use. So that is one thing that really gives them the incentive to work for the environment, because in working for the environment, they're also working for themselves. One typical example of that is that in the rehabilitated lands, trees that no longer were growing there start growing, and these are the trees that they then are a source of money for them in terms of the fact that they now start practicing beekeeping or apiculture. So you know that when you start practicing apiculture, the number of trees also, because of the pollination, it increases. The trees get, lands that had been bare, they start becoming dense forests because of the combined efforts, one from nature, one from the bees, and the other from the communities themselves in the rehabilitation. So there's a number of communities that have started doing that work, and they are realizing the benefits. I think as well, with this project, what was additional from the previous project was that our funders then in the Ministry of Agriculture then decided that we should establish a land degradation surveillance framework. Now, this is a framework that we're still in the process of establishing, which is going to identify areas that are degradation prone, so that initiatives to rehabilitate that land will be done before the land becomes severely degraded, because it is very expensive, to rehabilitate land that is severely degraded. So right now, we're in the process of doing that framework, which basically means that the country as a whole will be in a position to know which areas are erosion prone, what initiatives should be taken there, which areas are severely degraded, and what kind of initiatives are needed, in those severely degraded areas. It's a tool that will benefit the nation, not only in just, rehabilitating the lands, but in recovering prime agricultural land. I'll make an example of one community, Gandinda, whereby the soils there are really very good for agricultural production, but because of degradation, those soils are going away. So now what the project is doing is to assist that community to rehabilitate those lands and then use this deep soils that are good, for agriculture. So it's not only a benefit to, the global environment benefits, it's also benefits to the people of the area in terms of increasing, their land for agricultural production.
The communities of Nceka and Slangwini were proactive in addressing the challenges on their own. They showed self-motivation by beginning to apply solutions to the problem. At first, the communities attempted to plant aloe vera plants to try and control the erosion of the soil in unfenced pieces of land. They did this without much success. That is when Eswade came on board to build skills and provide equipment in the form of gibbons and fences as catchment management. Eswade uses community entry strategies to sensitize the chiefs on the need to intervene.
Siyabonga kuye uhulumende wakwaNgwane ngokusilethela Swade lo nguyena abelihlahlandlela wasivula nemehlo ngendzaba yekuvalwa kwetindonga. Letindonga vele betinkinga kakhulu ngoba bokukhandza lokuthi emasimu sekayadleka ngenxa yokugeduka. Lapha nje ngentasi la ubheka kusikhunyane afike wasiliswa savala tindonga sinaye Swade kusho ukuthi kwakunemathuna labe sabonakala ukuthi atawemuka kwabonakalisa ukuthi hawu ngcono kuvalwe letindonga. Kuhlanyelwe tihlahla nje kuhlanyelwe nekuthi ke nalabantu labalaceleni labangibona babuke lapha la kwavalwa khona kubonakele ukuthi kufanele ukuthi kube khona laba kulimako la ngekhathi balime tindlu letitabenda ukuthi bakhone kuphila, tibhito bobhatata tindlu nje letitabenda ukuthi bakhone nabo kuqosha kati etiko. Lokukhulu vele leluhlelo lokuvalwa kwetindonga silubonga kakhulu ngoba kunengi Swade lapha sicathuthise khona kungasiko lokuvala letindonga kuphela. usicathutisile nasetinkukhwini temakhaya lokuthi singafuyeli kudla, kepha sifuyele ukuthi sithengise. Kwasita-ke naloko ukuthi-ke okay-ke senginayo le nawuzana le nkukhu sengitayithengisaphi, kepha Swade wajinga wasichasa ngebantu abatasithengela lo mkhicido wethu nasesikhicitile. Manje-ke sengisho ukuthi awu siyabonga kakhulu ngoba cishe nje la nceka sive saphuma. Ziningi tindzawo la tivalile vele eSwade, konke kubomagojela, kubodziya, kusikhunyane, kakhoza, cishe vele nje usebentile kakhulu uSwade, sibambisene naye, sisebenza kahle kakhulu. Nathi nje sisive senceka siyacela uhulumende kaNgwane ukuthi awu sicela ukuthi Swade lapho anqonqotha khona ungathi angabombambisa, ngoba siyathi phela ukuthi konke lokhu la kwentako Swade akakwenti nje mahala, ukwenta ngekucela leto timali etimini tenkosi. Manje-ke besicela lokho ukuthi sive sasenceka angendeli inceka yodwa, kodwa nje live kaNgwane likhulu lelihluphekile, kepha nje besisho ukuthi uma siqhamuka sibe nceka sikhala ajinge nje asukume nje ngoba sisebenza kahle, sibambisana kahle, sibona ngasolini kude lokusolana. Yena Swade siyambonga kakhulu, cishe kulobo bonkosi.
So we are at Kunyana community here under Nceka chiefdom, which is a chiefdom under the Lubombo region. We are doing land rehabilitation works here in this area. So basically this area was selected based on a national land and water inventory which was covering the 37 chiefdoms which the project is working on. And then it was highlighted as one of the erosion hotspots in the country. So which is why we are working here to implement erosion control works. So what we are doing here, we are protecting this area from further erosion. The erosion here is a result of livestock movement here, which we're moving towards the river. There is a river downstream here named Mtlatuzane River. It is the same river that is also supplying water to the Lubovane Reservoir downstream, which supports the sugarcane irrigation projects under the Lucy project. So part of this work here, we are doing catchment management. So it adds value to the lifespan of the Lubovane Reservoir downstream, because when we allow erosion to take place in the catchment area of the reservoir, we may over time find ourselves losing a significant amount of storage in the reservoir, and hence having an adverse impact on our Lucy project, which is also one of the big projects in the country. So here we work with community members to make these erosion control structures here, the gabion structures. The theory behind this, we just try to slow down the velocity of the flow along the channel, so that we are able to trap the sediments on the upstream side of the structure. We have many other structures on the channel that side, which we will also show as we proceed with our work today here. What they are trained about, they are exposed on the topics of erosion control, on the topics of natural resources management, which involves the rangelands, which also involve the natural tree or plant species in the area. So we want to conserve biodiversity from the human impacts that we have in our communities. So they come here and work on a daily basis to construct these structures. We also train them. We have facilitators amongst them who are also members of the community. They are trained to facilitate these interventions with the community members.
In this area we can see that we have mostly women, and some of them have children. They brought the children to come here and work. So that's not some kind of slavery. It's not like they're forced to So they just come here and bring their kids to work here, and that shows how much they are committed to participate in this whole project. They want to also see the good results, considering that they knew the land, they know the original state of the land, what it was before, because most of them were born here, so they were bred here, and they know the original state of the land, that it was like this, it was not degraded. So now, following this intervention and the positive impact that this intervention has brought, they can observe for themselves that the lands are recovering, and most of the parts where the project started, the first sites, it is fully recovered, and they see that. So now they are fully committed to keep on working with this project. We believe that this land rehabilitation intervention brought into the Brega community and all the other communities out there are going to restore their degraded lands back to their original state, and they can be used again.
So here is a gabion structure which is meant to lock the end of this donga here. It's a big donga going downstream to the river. So we constructed this structure here so that we are able to lock further erosion going upstream of the donga. So here it's another structure that we have constructed. Over time, as the water comes in with sediments, there is a build-up of soil that comes with the flow from the upstream area. So the build-up accumulates on the upstream side over time, and it will reach a point whereby the trapped sediments reach the spillway of this structure. So what we do here, inside the channel, we construct this structure and we leave a spillway in the middle, so that we are saying we don't entirely stop the water to flow through the structure, but we allow it to temporarily stop the flow up to a point whereby the water level rises to the height of the spillway, and then the water will flow over the structure, but most of the sediments will be trapped on the upstream side, and then that soil will pile up and pile up over time, leaving this area upstream fully flooded with sediments, and that's part of the rehabilitation process. And then going downstream, we create these other steps for energy dissipation. We do not want to see further erosion downstream of the structure due to the water falling at a much higher height. So we make these steps so that we dissipate the energy. And here, as you can see here, we don't have much erosion at the bottom side of the structure going downstream, because we have dissipated all the energy on these steps that you can see here. So I think that is what that's the theories behind this structure. And then we have a number of these structures along the channel. The number of structures that we construct along the channel depends on the slope of that channel. If we have a steeper sloping channel, then we are going to have many stations, structural stations along the channel, so that we are able to control the velocity, not to gain more energy and erosive power. Because when the water is flowing at a higher speed, it has a high load carrying capacity, hence causing more erosion on the embankments. So when we have a steeper slope, we have many structures along such a channel than on a mild slope. So how then do we station these structures? We station them in such a way that the elevation of the spillway of this structure is the same as the bottom elevation of the previous structure upstream. We do that to allow that the build-up of the sediments going up, it will reach the toe of the other structure upstream when it is now filling to the height of the spillway here. And then when it comes to that stage, we will then come to fill this spillway with another layer of gabion, so that we also increase the build-up of sediments upstream. At the end of the day, we want to see a situation whereby this whole area upstream of the structure is flooded with sediments. We also have biological methods which involve the planting of trees inside the channel. So as the healing process, the rehabilitation process continues over time, we also plant trees along the channel also to improve the trapping of the sediments, and also to have more resistance to the flow which is going through the tunnel. And then as part of this here, we have also fenced this area. So the fencing, we want to restrict animal movements so that we don't promote further erosion. But we have also provided other pathways to the river, because this area, the erosion of this area was mostly caused by the movement of animals going to drink in the river. So we have also then provided other pathways for the cows to go and access the river. But then inside here, we want to give this area more time to be rehabilitated without further anthropogenic interactions or human disturbances that might affect the rehabilitation process. But now you can now see that there is a buildup of soil on the upstream side. So slowly we already see the impact of these structures that we have created here. You can also see grass growing on the downstream side, which is also a result of having these structures here. So we see the impact of these structures, and even upstream we can also see grass growing and this soil being trapped here. So it is indeed showing that we are making an impact here. So the user group will grow fruit trees, and they will also be able to grow other small-scale production here, which will enable the community to have some form of revenues being generated in this rehabilitated area.
On the ground, land degradation has been an everyday challenge. This has been so to include not only the economic aspect, but as well as social aspect. A 5-hectare piece of land in the Ncega community has been marked to implement the project. A majority of the community members that have stood up to take lead and ownership of the land rehabilitation intervention are women.
Lenzawo le inkulu kakhulu, sitawulima siphile la kuyo ngoba kude lesitakuswela nje kulenzawana lena. Lo mhlaba lo ungemahekthala 5 khulu vele. Lesikubukile ke kuwo ngekusitwa ngito letinini njengaloku sivala letindvongo. Kuthatha ungabuyela la esimeni sawo, kulima sitawulima, sihlanyele tihlahla, ema-orange, emangoza, emananji, nabo-banana, lesitawukhona ukuthi sitiphilise ngako. Ngoba vele besitiphilisa kuwo lo mhlaba, sase sehlulwa ngito tona letindvongo. Nyalo-ke sesiyabona ukuthi hawu liyembili. Kuthatha ukufika 2022 thina Ncega vele sihambile embili kakhulu. Lala ngime khona, ngime emsebentini lesiwusebentako. Kwefika bakaliswedi basibuthanisa kusibuta etintfweni lesitidzingako. Sasho ke lokho ukuthi silungiselela kwenta libhuku, salungisa libhuku kahle, satisho tonke tincomo tethu lesitiswele. Nasisebenta sacala ngako kuhlupheka ngato letindvonga ngoba letindvonga kunebantu bethu lebesibathandza kakhulu lapha labalele. Bese bahamba. Kodwa ngekusitwa kuletinini tethu tenkhosi, labantu bethu sesiyajabula kubona ukuthi sebavikelekile nabo ngoba umuntu umthandza ngisho athulile, awumthandza umuntu unaphila kuphela. Siyatibonga kakhulu letinini tethu ngoba namhlanje siyatichenya vele ngaliswedi. Sitichenya kakhulu, ngisho ngihamba ngitiva nginetigi kuleli vila seNcega. siwuphakamisile umphakathi wethu, asikamenteli ishifu wethu phansi, saphakamisa kakhulu, sawufaka umfutho ekusebenteni. Nato nje tinini enkosi ngiyabona tuyatichenya ngenceka. Letindvonga leti tinkhomo tethu betigcumukela tephuka. Letindvonga leti titsatsa lo mhlaba wonke tiwuyise kule ntuthuko lelibovane letasisita thine sive sala emangweni. Nyalo nje lendzawo ibiyelekile, ibiye ngitotinini tethu tenkosi. Yabiyeleka lendzawo asisaphathamiseki ngalutho, kwakhiwa kunemagate kuyakhiwa, yindzawo lebe ilidlelo, kodwa ngebudlelo bayo kude tinkhomo lebe tisakwenta ngoba nathi nje tindvonga njengaloku nibona tinjengaloku tinjena, awu betingenti lutho bese tingasadli. Nyalo-ke lokhu kufeniselwe sesiyabona nathi ukuthi kukhona lesingakwenta noma silime sikhone kuphila kule ndzawo lena.
Mina ngengigega ngokwamakhanye lesho sikule lenkuyo le kusesihlangweni kunanamsebenzi nangilesiwendako la khanzela uSwade siwenda ngoba lapha nje sacala la naku nje la kunalibhlona likhona nyalo leli la kulendzawo yethu le sihlushwa tindvonga letindvonga leti ke betingangaka ngoba lapha nje kwakuyindlela la sasihamba khona na sicuba tinkomo temfuleni tiyonatha kuflethi nje kahle la kwahamba ke ngoba nje kwakunemgwaco labo uhamba lapha entasi lapha uphuma udzabula uthi longefiki letindonga leti kwase sekuhamba ke ngekuswelakala kwesimo selitulu kwase ke lo mhlaba wethu lo leli silingabalela kakhulu ugaduke lo mhlaba uvule tifa uthi ungavula letifa ke nasekubuya letulu ke afike lamanti angene la kuletifa tala umlowanyana bese ke soyabuya ke lo mhlaba ke soyakhukhuleka ke sekuyawa ke use ke lube kangaka nje ngalolu ngaka nje kwahamba kwafika ke la esigabeni sekuthi ke sitawenda njani ngoba nangu vele kuyabonakala ukuthi le ndlela vele iyavaleka le sesiyetama ke sihle sikhanatha inhlaba sifaka kuhambe ke kwangenti lutho sihambe sikhena nakuthi imbali naku sikufaka kungasebenzi inhlanhla ke kwase sekufika ke bakaSwade ke basikhanza ke nathi vele sila endleleni nalomgomeni ukuthi vele siyafala base baselekelela ke sisafala la kulokugaduka kwalomhlaba ukhanze sithi imbuti tingena la ngaphasi nakuna letulu ngakuyekela kwalomhlaba kuyekele kubuye ugqibele timbuti la bese ke sesifa ngelivunze lapha lokuthi timbuti tethu setiphelile kufika ke uSwade la nakacala lokuthi asikhanza sisebenta la wasusinika ke nangifenisi na ngathi kasivalele kucala lendzawo kuze letinkomo naletimbuti tingathi ukhona lokuthi tihambe la ngoba vele letinkomo naletimbuti bese kuyingoti kakhulu ngoba inkomo nayigcumukela lapha nje lenye nje nasisakha la ikhona lesayikhanza igcumukele la phela beyingephuka indzawo saze sesiyacela basivumela ke bakaSwade ukuthi siyakhe lendlela sacala ngayo sayakha ke sayicetha bakhona abantu abesikole kuhamba la baya esikolweni bakhona abothishela kuhamba bawufundisa abantu abethu bakhona nabogogo ukuthi bahambe baye etibhedlela le kuqaleni nasisenda thini besibeka nje thine ngalendlela besibeka ngayo afike lamanti akhukhule yonke lento le waseke uSwade ke nasefika ke kule system lena nje wase ufuna umuntu lekufanele sahambe ayofunza lokuthi nyalo ngiphi incubo lekufanele kwakhiwe ngayo lokuvale ngayo letihoko base bangithatha ke mina ke sebahamba ke sebawusifundisa ke.
The land rehabilitation intervention has clearly brought a glimmer of hope and success. Will it continue? Will it expand to other areas? What does the future look like?
With the land rehabilitation process, what tends to happen is that the communities learn from each other. They see, that community X has done rehabilitation and they are benefiting from the rehabilitated land, and then they start and do, and ask for assistance, in terms of what can we do. In some instances, they even provide their own materials because they've seen the benefits.
Saba nenkinga yetindvonga sesingasakhona ukwewela, sesingasakhona ngisho nokwentani, sesisina sewelasiwe sephuke. Kwase lwevela ke lusito laka Swade. Basisita kakhulu bakaLswede, tindvonga sativala, safaka nafenisi, basisita kakhulu, sahlanyela lokwa nalokwa tihlahla latindvongeni, lwema ke ludvonga. Emva kwaloko ke bangcwele sase siyalima la ngekhatsi, silima bobhatata, botinhlumaya, konke nje lokudlekako besikulima la khatsi engadzeni. Lokwasifela ke ngiletihlahla bebasinikete tona, kwasifela ke lokho letinye bedliwa ngimuhlwa Nkosi yami. Kodwa nje ke nalamhla lokhu akungeni lutho solokubiyelelekile. Bazalwane, kude ke lokhu bulese kusiphazamisa nje, sibiyile nje sisehle tindvunga timile ngoba kuba akuvalwanga, ngabona ngase kuhamba inqumbi yemiti. Amen. Cha bazalwane, nani lapho lani khona nivala letindvonga, ningaphelelwa ngemandla, chubekani, fakani emandla, tindvonga tiyavaleka. Bazalwane, nasenivalile niyakhona kungena la ngekhatsi nilime, niphile, nidle. Kude nje inkinga lencane nakuvaleke nje kahle lo fenisi, kuba mnanzi nje kutsi chuba ngcwele. Amen.
Land rehabilitation is clearly one of those interventions that, if implemented as efficiently as demonstrated by Eswade, will be an answer to many of the environmental challenges faced by the communities of Eswatini.